Hello, welcome to A Book a Day. In this issue, we will delve into the book Don't Let Your Emotions Run Your Life for Teens. This book is approximately 250,000 words long, and I will take about 20 minutes to share with you the essence of the book. How to become a person with high emotional intelligence, EQ. There's a famous saying about the important role of EQ in personal development. A person's achievement is 20% dependent on their IQ and 80% dependent on their EQ. This is because people with high EQ often have a peaceful mindset, are skilled at communication, thrive in interpersonal relationships, and quickly achieve their life goals. However, there is a common misconception about improving EQ, which is the belief that high EQ simply means being good at speaking. The author of this book clarifies that improving EQ is not just about learning to speak well. In English, the abbreviation for emotional intelligence is EQ, where the E stands for emotion. Thus, EQ literally means a person's emotional intelligence. If you search Google for explanations of EQ, you will find that improving EQ is about turning uncontrollable emotions into controllable ones, thereby enhancing one's ability to understand and interact with others. The author also mentions that the fundamental step to improving EQ is emotion management, which is why the book is titled Don't Let Your Emotions Run Your Life for Teens. The author of the book is a Canadian psychologist named Sherry Van Dyke, one of the main proponents of dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, which is the theoretical foundation of this book. This therapy was proposed by Dr. Marsha Linehan, a distinguished psychologist from the University of Washington. To date, many psychologists worldwide have used DBT to address patients' emotional issues, and it occupies an important position in clinical psychological treatment. Dr. Linehan, using DBT, also founded a highly popular EQ training course in American universities, teaching people how to understand and manage their emotions. This course has become one of the most sought-after EQ training courses at Ivy League institutions like Harvard University, MIT, and Stanford University. In this book, the author, based on her practical experience and using DBT as a foundation, provides a clear and straightforward explanation of Dr. Linehan's high EQ training course, introducing many techniques for improving EQ. The book is highly practical and has received millions of positive reviews upon its publication in the United States. In this book, the author mainly discusses two essential skills for improving EQ. Having introduced the basics of the book and the author's background, let's now discuss the three key contents of the book. The first key content: the methodological background of the high EQ training course, Dialectical Behavior Therapy. The second key content: how to improve your emotional regulation skills. The third key content: how to enhance your interpersonal skills. Now, let's discuss the first key topic: the methodological background of the high emotional intelligence, EQ training course, Dialectical Behavior Therapy, DBT. DBT, founded by Dr. Marsha Linehan, a distinguished psychologist at the University of Washington, is based on the fundamental principles of dialectics. It emphasizes a dialectical balance and coordination between rationality and emotionality, and between acceptance and change. DBT has been very effective in treating a range of issues characterized by emotional and behavioral dysregulation, such as anxiety disorders, obsessive-compulsive disorder, depression, and more. It not only helps to improve the ability to view things objectively and comprehensively, but also assists in effectively coping with dysregulated emotions, thereby enhancing one's EQ. Given the significant role of DBT in international clinical psychological practice, three authoritative scholars, Dr. Matthew McKay, Dr. Jeffrey Seawood, and Dr. Jeffrey Brantley, collaborated in 2009 to write the book Dialectical Behavior Therapy. This book is considered the best self-help book in the U.S. for obsessive-compulsive disorder and borderline personality disorder. It contains many self-emotion evaluation sections, with strong guidance and specificity. The book we are discussing today, High EQ is Cultivated, can be seen as a practical version of dialectical behavior therapy. In this book, the author mainly discusses two skills from DBT: how to improve emotional regulation skills and interpersonal skills. Now, moving on to the second key topic: how to improve your emotional regulation skills. In life, you might encounter situations where, due to poor control of your emotions, you end up saying things that offend others when you're feeling down. Gradually, people may start distancing themselves from you. perceiving you as someone with low EQ and difficult to get along with. From this perspective, the root cause of low EQ is the inability to adequately control one's emotions, leading to difficulties in friendly interactions with others. Therefore, the author states that the first step in training EQ is to enhance your emotional regulation skills. How can this be achieved? What are the effective methods to improve your ability to regulate emotions? Indeed, there are. But before discussing the methods, it's important to understand what emotions are and how they affect you. Emotions are fundamentally classified into various forms such as happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy. However, emotions are not that simple. In this book, the author explains that emotions can be divided into two types: primary emotions and derivative emotions. Primary emotions are your instinctive responses to events, which are unchangeable, like feeling scared when there's thunder. Derivative emotions are caused by your thoughts, the feelings that arise from processing your primary emotions. For instance, you feel scared during a thunderstorm, but you're too ashamed to tell others you're afraid of thunder. In this case, fear is your primary emotion, while shame is your derivative emotion. If you exhibit unusual behavior in certain situations, it's often because you're controlled by your derivative emotions. Let's take a more illustrative example to see how derivative emotions can influence your behavior. Imagine you're driving home and suddenly, a car changes lanes and speeds past you. Instantly, you feel endangered, even a bit scared, and start swerving to avoid that car. But a few seconds later, you assume the other driver did it on purpose. So your fear quickly turns into anger, leading to aggressive behavior as you start chasing the other car, eventually causing a rear-end collision. In this example, your primary emotion is the fear and fright you felt when the other car overtook you, while your derivative emotion is the anger, spurred by the thought they did it on purpose, making you increasingly angry and seeking retaliation. This shows that derivative emotions are the culprits behind irrational behavior. Therefore, the key to managing emotions lies in learning to control your derivative emotions, preventing them from disrupting your judgment of situations. After understanding the two categories of emotions and the impact of derivative emotions on your behavior, let's delve into how to regulate derivative emotions. The author mentions 4 techniques. The first technique: train your ability for self-awareness to achieve detachment from thoughts and feelings. Self-awareness means focusing on what you're currently doing, trying not to subjectively judge past events to avoid triggering negative derivative emotions that affect your mood. Training in self-awareness can help you free yourself from the control of derivative emotions. Let's consider an example to see the consequences of lacking self-awareness. A woman who was late to work and missed an important meeting felt extremely guilty, leading her to be so remorseful all day that she mistakenly sent a crucial email, resulting in the loss of an important project. This example shows that people lacking self-awareness often immerse themselves in past pains, troubled by past emotions. Just like this woman, overly focusing on what has already happened and not concentrating on the present task led to the severe consequence of losing a significant project. So, how can you train your self-awareness? DBT mentions a technique that can help you break free from negative emotions. The core of mastering this technique lies in using your imagination to visualize your thoughts and emotions, imagining them drifting away from you before they can cause harm. For instance, imagine sitting on a grassy field, watching your thoughts and emotions drift away with the clouds, or sitting by a stream, watching your thoughts and emotions float away with the falling leaves, or writing your thoughts and emotions on the sand and then watching the waves wash them away. Only by not immersing yourself in past pains can you significantly reduce the likelihood of generating derivative emotions. The second technique: observe yourself without judgment and utilize coping thoughts effectively. Have you noticed in life that when some people are angry or hurt, they often judge the person or situation that triggered their negative emotions, magnifying their suffering and eventually leading to emotional outbursts? For example, if they make a mistake, they might quickly denigrate themselves, believing they are incompetent. If someone else makes a mistake, they may think the other person is utterly reprehensible. The key to the success of high EQ training courses in helping you regulate your emotions lies in the skills of acceptance and change. As Rabindranath Tagore said, if you cry because the sun has gone out of your life, your tears will prevent you from seeing the stars. Therefore, to enhance your EQ, you must deal with issues objectively, without subjectively judging objective matters, and not dwell excessively on your mistakes. Dialectical behavior therapy posits that two seemingly contradictory things can both be correct. The most important dialectical thought is that while changing destructive behavior, one should accept oneself without any judgment to lead a healthier life. For instance, Jim lost a watch gifted by his girlfriend. When he first discovered it was missing, he was furious, feeling foolish and careless. This thought made him feel even worse about the lost watch. In this case, the type of thought Jim had is known as a triggering thought, which leads to or exacerbates painful emotions. The author mentions that triggering thoughts often cause emotional unrest, with typical examples including "I can't do anything right," "I'm a failure," "nobody cares about me," "I don't trust anyone." If such thoughts persist and cause painful emotions, they can become a powerful negative force in one's life. What should you do when you have triggering thoughts? The author suggests 2 points. First, when something bad happens, do not judge it. Learn to accept reality to avoid generating triggering thoughts. Second, when triggering thoughts bring negative emotions, actively use coping thoughts to soothe your feelings. For example, in Jim's case, the thought "I am an idiot" initially made him very depressed. But later, when he used the coping thought "mistakes are inevitable, nobody is perfect," he felt much better. So, when you experience negative emotions, find some strong, positive coping thoughts to remind yourself of your strengths and past successes. Write them down and place them where you can see them easily, so they are handy when you face difficulties. The more frequently you see these affirmations, the faster they will become an organic part of your thought process. Common coping thoughts include "I can get through this too," and "the situation is bad, but it's only temporary." Similarly, when someone else does something that makes you uncomfortable, you can use coping thoughts, reflecting on the good things they have done for you in the past. The third technique, learn to think in a balanced way. Once you can focus on what you're doing in the present and not judge events, the next skill to develop is balanced thinking. Balanced thinking means not being overly emotional or completely disregarding emotions, but rather finding a way to integrate rationality and emotionality. The author states that the ability to think in a balanced way is the gold standard for determining high or low EQ. Let's take an example to see how a person with balanced thinking makes decisions when faced with a situation. Tom is very busy at work while his colleagues are relatively free. However, his boss assigns him another new task at this time. Tom feels bullied and treated unfairly, which upsets him greatly. He wants to yell at his boss and quit on the spot. But Tom doesn't do that. Instead, he chooses to persevere until he can calmly find a way to communicate with his boss. He knows that reacting impulsively would lead to losing his job and income source. In this example, Tom's way of thinking is a balanced thought process. People who think in a balanced manner prioritize their long-term goals and make the most effective decisions. So, how can you train your ability to think in a balanced way? The author mentions a small tip. When you can't do it, imagine what you would advise a friend if they were in a similar situation. The fourth technique, handle emotional crises. Even if you do well in the first 3 areas, you will still encounter intense emotions that you can't control, a situation we call an emotional crisis. The author provides 3 techniques for successfully handling an emotional crisis. First, you can imagine yourself as a friend in the same situation, having a heart-to-heart talk with yourself. Write a letter to yourself from another person's perspective, discussing the wrong ways you've handled emotions recently and encouraging yourself to make changes. Second, find ways to distract yourself. Create a comfort list, thinking about what can make you happy. Finally, devise a crisis management plan for yourself, including what triggers your emotional crises, your typical behaviors during these crises, and what activities you can try to divert your attention. One of the main reasons emotional crises often lead to loss of control is that people generally do not prepare a response plan in advance, meaning you can only resort to old, simple, and inappropriate methods. However, if you can use these 3 techniques to be prepared, you can significantly increase your chances of successfully handling emotional crises. This concludes the second topic, how to improve your emotional regulation skills. In this part, the author mainly introduced the impact of emotions on people and 4 effective techniques for managing emotions. The author states that emotions can be divided into primary and derivative types, and the reason for low EQ is often because one is controlled by their derivative emotions, leading to inappropriate behaviors that break down interpersonal relationships. Therefore, the key to improving EQ lies in how to manage and control one's derivative emotions, preventing them from growing unchecked. Here, the author mentions 4 key techniques for regulating emotions. 1. Learn self-awareness and focus on what you're currently doing, avoiding being troubled by past thoughts. 2. Criticize less, accept more, deal with issue factually, and learn to use coping thoughts. 3. Focus on your long-term goals and use a balanced thinking model for decision-making. 4. In the face of emotional crises, prepare a response plan in advance. Now, let's discuss the third key topic for today: how to improve your interpersonal skills. The author states that managing one's emotions is a prerequisite for improving interpersonal skills. Why is that? Because the state of one's emotions often affects the quality of their interpersonal relationships. For example, if you're in a good mood today, your relationships will likely be harmonious. If you're in a bad mood, your relationships might suffer. Therefore, to maintain harmonious relationships, in addition to mastering emotional management techniques, one must also employ certain skills to improve their interpersonal abilities. How can this be done? The author mentions 2 aspects in the book. 1. How to maintain existing relationships, and 2. How to expand future interpersonal relationships. 1. How to maintain existing relationships. If you have experience in sales, you might have heard the saying, securing 10 new customers is not as valuable as maintaining one existing customer. I believe the same applies to friendships. It's much more efficient to maintain existing relationships than to blindly make new friends. The most important aspect of maintaining relationships is mastering effective communication skills. The author mentions that people with high EQ use a communication model called assertive communication. Those who communicate in this way can not only express their views appropriately, but also practice empathy, respecting both themselves and others. So, for the average person, how can you master assertive communication skills? The author suggests 4 points. First, when expressing emotions, start sentences with I instead of you. This shift helps to focus on expressing your own feelings to gain understanding from others. For example, instead of saying you make me so angry, I don't want to talk to you anymore, try saying I feel very angry and I need some time to calm down. Although both sentences convey the same emotion, the latter is less likely to be perceived as an accusation and more likely to be heard. Second, when speaking, try to express feelings first. For example, I'm sad to hear you say, that is better than hearing you say that makes me sad. Although there's little difference on the surface, the first expression shows you taking responsibility for your emotions, while the second may imply blaming the other person for your negative feelings. Third, when negotiating with others, speak neither too softly nor too harshly. For instance, a girl who promised her sister to spend more time at home during the summer holidays has to leave early due to unforeseen circumstances, making her sister feel disappointed. The best communication strategy here would be to empathize with the sister's feelings and apologize for the decision, while also honestly expressing her own thoughts and feelings. The communication should be assertive but not aggressive or overly submissive. Fourth, learn to actively listen and identify the needs of others. Good communication is a two-way process. Active listening involves not just hearing but also providing feedback. The author states that effective communication carries the responsibility of truly understanding the other person, with the ultimate goal being change. Standards for active listening include understanding the other person's needs and providing effective feedback. For example, if you're unsure about the other person's feelings or wishes during a conversation, you can ask, "I'm not sure I understand. Can you explain that again?" Or "What kind of change do you think we should make in this situation?" The more proactive you are in asking, the more you will understand, and the better equipped you will be to find a win-win solution. To practice active listening, avoid interrupting others when they speak, refrain from judging their words arbitrarily, and provide timely acknowledgement in feedback without compromising your values and moral standards. 2. How to expand future interpersonal relationships. Some people, when overwhelmed by intense emotions, tend to isolate themselves and avoid the care of friends and family. Others may inappropriately vent their emotions, such as using friends as a sounding board, driving them away. Both situations can lead to becoming increasingly solitary. So, what can you do to expand your social circle when it is limited? Next, we will discuss 2 methods for expanding interpersonal relationships. The first method is to consider repairing a past friendship. Many people have experienced falling out with a close friend over an issue and then gradually drifting apart. If you have ever regretted the end of such a friendship, what you need to do now is to make an effort to reach out, explain the situation clearly, and share your true feelings. Rekindling an old friendship often requires less time and energy than making a new friend. The second method involves using people with wide social circles to develop your own social relationships. For example, an IT professional in his 30s who hadn't dated due to limited social interactions began trying to connect with a colleague known for having a wide circle of friends. He believed that by establishing a good friendship with this colleague, he could indirectly expand his own social circle. He initiated conversations with this colleague and often joined them for meals and trips. As a result, he not only made friends in various fields through this colleague but also successfully found a girlfriend he liked. This story is quite inspirational, isn't it? Therefore, if you want to expand your social circle but don't know where to start, consider leveraging others' networks to develop your own friendships. This concludes the third topic for today. To improve your interpersonal skills, you can start from two aspects. One is to maintain existing relationships, and the other is to expand your future interpersonal relationships. Regarding maintaining existing relationships, the key lies in mastering the following communication skills. First, start sentences with I instead of you when expressing emotions and place the expression of feelings at the forefront to make others feel you are expressing your feelings, not blaming them. Second, when negotiating, speak neither too softly nor too harshly, striking a balance between stating your position and understanding others. Finally, practice active listening, understanding the other's needs, and providing effective feedback. Regarding expanding future relationships, in addition to the communication skills mentioned above, consider these two methods. 1. Try to repair a past friendship, and 2. Develop social relationships through others. Let's summarize how to become a person with high emotional intelligence, EQ. The first main content, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, as the methodological background for high EQ training, emphasizes the dialectical balance and coordination between rationality and emotionality, as well as between acceptance and change. This is a highly effective and mature treatment method in international clinical psychology practice. It helps people learn dialectical thinking methods, improves the ability to see things objectively and comprehensively, and enhances the ability to cope with emotional dysregulation and behavioral abnormalities. In this book, two major skills from DBT, emotional regulation skills and interpersonal skills, are applied to help you improve your EQ. The second main content, the foundation for improving EQ, is learning to manage your own emotions and not be controlled by them. The author mentions 4 techniques for emotion management. 1. Practice self-awareness, focusing on the present, using imagination to distance negative emotions, and avoiding dwelling in past pains. 2. Criticize less, accept more, deal with issues factually, avoid triggering derivative emotions, and timely use coping thoughts. 3. Think in a balanced way, focusing on long-term goals without being swayed by current emotions. 4. Prepare in advance for emotional crises and be ready to respond. The third main content. After mastering emotional management, it's necessary to learn some skills to effectively improve your interpersonal abilities. First, you can use 4 communication skills to maintain existing relationships. For example, start expressing emotions with I instead of you. Place the expression of feelings first, making the other person feel you are expressing yourself, not blaming them. Negotiate neither too submissively nor aggressively, and learn to actively listen and provide effective feedback for a win-win outcome. Second, there are 2 methods to expand your future interpersonal relationships. The first method is to try to repair a past friendship. The second is to develop your social relationships through others. Remember, high EQ is not innate but can be trained. Hopefully, the techniques discussed today can be of help to you. That concludes our discussion of this book. Congratulations, you have completed another book.